Nearly 3 decades ago, Daytona International Speedway entertained a bold experiment. Off-road racing on a man-made track in a stadium was born and christened with the name Supercross. The success it has enjoyed since then brings us back to where it all began. For the 400th time, the gate will drop, and for the 400th time, a 250 Supercross winner will be crowned. The most likely candidate for that honor is Ricky Carmichael. The Honda rider is the defending champion and has won 6 times already this season. Plus, he's almost unbeatable on home soil in the Sunshine State. So, can the most dominant rider in Supercross since Jeremy McGrath continue to reign supreme? Or will his rivals topple him from the top of the heap? Pull up a chair, but not too close. Supercross from Daytona is coming at you on Speed.
Welcome to Bike Week 2003 here in Daytona Beach. It's the Daytona Supercross by Honda. The weather conditions? Not very good. Today, the racetrack is nasty, and that's a good thing. Hi, everybody. I'm Ralph Shaheen. Welcome to Daytona Beach, Florida, here at the Daytona International Speedway. A nasty racetrack, perfect for Supercross racing. It's going to be wild and crazy out there. The guys are going to get dirty. The racing is going to be hard. But one thing is for sure, we're going racing here today. We had a lot of trouble with bad weather here on the racetrack yesterday. Couldn't get any of the road racing in, but we will definitely go racing with the high-flying antics of Supercross here today, and it should be a spectacular show. Now, tomorrow, we will hopefully be able to get the road racing action actually in. The Daytona 200 preview show will begin around 9 a.m. Eastern Time live, the MB&A 250 Grand Prix at 9:30, and then we'll have the Pro Honda Oils U.S. Supersport race, 10:30 a.m. First time ever here in the United States, the BMW Motorrad Boxer Cup event, 11:30 a.m. live here on Speed. We're just beginning at that point. The pre-race show for the Daytona 200 by Arai at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The Daytona 200 by Arai will come on at 1 a.m. Eastern live, and then after the 200, the Genuine Suzuki Accessories Super Stock race. It is going to be an action-packed day here tomorrow. Today, though, plenty of great Supercross action headed your way, and calling the race for us today will be Brian Trevor, and a man who has won this race 2 times, Rick Johnson.
Thanks, Ralph. The esteemed Mr. Shaheen sending it up here. And, Rick, we look out over the Speedway, and, of course, yesterday everybody was hiding under the tents. Today they're out there, and, well, it should be sunshine. They're going to race anyway.
Well, that's what you have with motocross and supercross. Rain or shine, you run it. And here at Daytona, it has a lot of sand, so they can get away with a lot more rain than most tracks. A lot of the supercrosses where it's just wood, you have a lot of trouble underneath because the water has nowhere to go. Here you have sand. It's got a place to go. Well,
Gary Bailey and his crew doing a great job working the midnight oil last night, pumping all the water out as best they could, and getting the track ready to go. And so far this Supercross season, sort of like last year, has been really all about Ricky Carmichael.
Yeah, Ricky Carmichael really, really strong. If you look at the standings, he's been the dominant rider throughout the year. He's had a couple bobbles. Chad Reed has beat him straight up a couple times, but Ricky Carmichael, the dominant man.
6 wins for Carmichael to 2 by Reed, and Ezra Lusk with a single win is back there a little bit further in the point standings, but it's all about Ricky Carmichael so far this season with 6 victories. Now he's standing by with another member of our broadcast team. Let's go downstairs to Greg White. Greggy.
Well, with a 22-point lead, Ricky Carmichael's starting to get in kind of manage mode. This championship is looking good for you. What about Daytona, man? This track is looking nasty.
Yeah, it's nasty. I'll tell you, a lot of rain this week at Bike Week, and man, it's a bummer. You know, it was going to be a gnarly Daytona race if it was dry. It was going to be probably one of the roughest that I've ever been to, but just because the track was really busy and, you know, or tighter than before. Didn't have a long straightaway. But, you know, a little bit of rain today, so we'll see what happens.
And what about Stanton, dude? He works with you, and you're about to tie his record. Is he all nervous about it?
I think he wants Ernesto Fonseca to win today, since, you know, he wants it to be a Honda, but, you know, he's cool about it. And, you know, I'm going to go out there and do the best I can do. You know, I'm not thinking about the record. You know, it is in the back of my mind, but first things first, and that's to try to win the race and secure myself for the championship.
Well, winning here at Daytona, Rick Johnson, no stranger to Ricky Carmichael. He may not be thinking about the record, but a lot of other people are. And if he wins here today, he'll move to within 2 on the all-time list behind Jeremy McGrath.
Yeah, he's already passed my record, so I really don't care one way or the other. But Ricky Carmichael, fierce competitor, and you're looking at the all-time 500 outdoor, 250 outdoor, 125 in Supercross. So it's a combined event. So Ricky has been one of the guys that's been motocross and Supercross. Jeremy elected to move away from Supercross, and now he was just running Supercross, but Ricky running both.
Yeah, and Ricky Carmichael has not ridden 500, so his record is all the more amazing considering that and how young he is still with a lot of years ahead of him. Now let's take a look at the track that they're going to be competing on here today. It's different this year. Gary Bailey, the track designer, decided to take a little bit of a new direction, and we've got a pretty interesting race course out there. Our Joe Rocket track map.
Well, as you're looking at the track, you see a lot of different track out there. You see that white dirt, that's shale. It's very packed, it's very hard. You see the black, that's sand. That's what's underneath the grass. That's the natural soil here. That stuff gets very deep, very soft, and that's where you see the tires run the most aggressive tire that they can get, because that's the majority of the track. You look about 90%. Also, Gary Bailey has brought in more dirt this year. You see the red clay, which it's a little bit slippery from this rain, and it gets some grooves in it, but they did a great job covering the jumps in the rain, pumping out the deep spots. So we're going to have a great Daytona race. It's not that much different than it would be if it didn't rain, because it always gets soft, it always gets rough. It's more like a motocross than it is a Supercross. So this track is going to be rough, demanding, and it's going to beat guys up. It's a long, fast race.
250s and 125s are going to be running here today. The 125 East Series goes to round 4. So far it's been Brandon Jessamine with a pair of wins that leads in the point standing. So we'll have to see if young Mr. Jessamine can pull off a win here at the fabled Daytona Supercross. Here are your point standings. Mike Brown with a win is sitting in second spot, and Brock Sellards in third, as you can see.
Yeah, a lot of these guys are running really strong. Jessamine has really stepped up his program, his training. I'm working with him at Suzuki. I'm very impressed with him. Mike Brown, champion in the past. So you got a lot of great riders, but this is the great equalizer. Sand steals horsepower. We'll see who's got it today.
Well, it should be a lot of fun. And we're up here in the booth getting ready for it. We know we're going racing here today, just like Ralph Shaheen said. Ralph, let's go back to you, huh?
Well, that's exactly right, Brian. And this is a bit of a historical day here in Supercross competition. For the 400th time in the history of the series, somebody will take a 250cc Supercross checkered flag. It's incredible how many 250cc Supercrosses have actually been contested. The 400th here this afternoon. Now, Dave Despain is usually here on Speed Channel when we're talking about motorcycles, but Dave had to rush back to Charlotte to do Wind Tunnel last night. He's on his way back to be with us for tomorrow's coverage. Before he went to Charlotte, he put a piece together for us to tell us his thoughts on what he sees in Supercross racing today.
Well, as we get set to find out who's going to win Daytona today, my thoughts turn to perennial dominance. That's usually not a good thing in racing. Half the fun is the suspense. Who's going to win this race? Yet in Supercross, we almost always know the answer. Throughout the 90s, it was Jeremy McGrath dominating the races, claiming the majority of the championships. When we passed the millennium, the story didn't change, only the name of the lead character. Ricky Carmichael now dominates this sport as totally as McGrath ever did, this year as strong as ever. And has Supercross suffered as a result of all this? Well, I certainly don't see the evidence. Week in and week out, it fills the biggest sports stadiums in America. It has become this country's largest two-wheeled attraction. Why? Two reasons. The spectacular aerobatics that these athletes perform, no matter the position for which they're racing, and the fact that Supercross just drips extreme sports attitude. Kids love it, moms and dads too. So, is today's outcome predictable? Absolutely. One of two things will happen. Ricky Carmichael will ride into the Daytona record book, tying Jeff Stanton's record for consecutive victories in this toughest Supercross of them all. Or we'll see the upset of the year. Either way, I'd say it's worth watching.
The Daytona Supercross by Honda coming up today here on Speed Channel. Stay with us. It's going to be a good one.
The Daytona Supercross by Honda on Speed is brought to you by Honda, the company that defines performance in motorcycles, ATVs, personal watercraft, and scooters. And Chevy Trucks, the most dependable, longest-lasting trucks on the road.
This week, certain competitors entered the hallowed grounds of Daytona. The Aussie settled in third off the start, but it wasn't long before he moved up. Chad Reed seems to be sizing up Mike Brown right now for a pass.
Yeah, stays a little bit lower than Brown, and now he pulls up next to him. and now it looks like he gets a run and moves into second place. So Chad Reed, our series point leader, is now in second place.
Grant Langston, the leader, was next.
Now Reed takes it in a little deep, but Langston
Reed takes the lead, but makes a mistake. Langston goes into the bail. Langston gets back up in time for third as Chad Reed goes on to claim his 4th victory of the season en route to the 2002 Eastern title for Yamaha. That was last season. Welcome back to right now at the Daytona Supercross by Honda here in Daytona Beach, Florida. Brian Drever and Rick Johnson upstairs getting ready for main events. But before we do that, we're going to take a look back at the highlights of the heats that happened earlier today. There were 2 of them. In the first, the guys in second and third place in points overall, Brock Sellers and Mike Brown duking it out for the win.
Brock Sellers taking that ride that Chad Reed had last year with the Yamaha Troy, but Mike Brown did not get a very good start, but makes a lot of ground this first lap, gets into second place. Mike has spent some time over in Europe. When you race over there, you got to deal with mud, so Mike was very comfortable, made up a lot of ground. Steve Boniface, we're watching here, another one of the riders, French rider that's comfortable with the mud, was working his way through the pack, but here was the race between Brown and Sellers.
Boniface eventually finishing 4th, but up front the lead seesawed back and forth. It's with Brown taking it from Brock Sellers.
Mike Brown very comfortable, but here he makes a big mistake. Gets out in front, washes the front end. Sellers a little tap, but was very kind, did not run him over.
Sellers picked it up. Sellers picked up the lead. Mike Brown stayed up in time to get in second position.
But Brock Sellers, his fastest lap of this race was a 1:32, so very strong finish on that YZ250F.
Brock Sellers taking the win in heat number 1, moving easily to the main event. Mike Brown held on to second position. Troy Adams 3rd, and Steve Boniface in 4th. Mud, a big problem here. And there are your results. The top 9 will transfer directly to the main, starting with Clinton Sheely. Everybody will have to go through the last chance qualifiers to try to make it to that main event here today. Heat number 2 of the 125s. Take a look here as Brandon Jessamine was out in front. Ryan Mills had a great start. He was battling with Kelly Smith for a while.
Those 2 riders going back and forth, but it was this man. Brandon Jessamine got out in front, and there you see Kelly Smith going down very hard. Mills and Shea Bentley getting by, so his work is definitely in front of him.
After he had started out so well, he had to settle in and fight for even a qualifying transfer position. He eventually ended up in 5th spot, did Kelly Smith. You can see he came under pressure. No pressure up front for Brandon Jessamine, however.
Shea Bentley here, 104, is the rider that was on the move. He was pushing towards Mills, but could never quite make the distance. A lot of riders can close the ground, but once you get on the back of somebody here at Daytona, that sand flies everywhere, and it takes a lot of the vision away. You'll see the riders working their goggles and their roll-offs all the time because vision is a major factor here.
Shea Bentley, former 125 East champion, working it up there and stays in 3rd spot. Ryan Mills just in front of him, and as you said, Bentley he could get to him, but couldn't get past him. No pressure whatsoever for Brandon Jessamine out front, turning very fast lap times. In fact, 3 seconds a lap quicker than the heat before him.
Yeah, Brandon Jessamine with his quickest lap of a 1:28, just took his time, stayed out in front. I think ended up with an 11-second quicker heat, so that's going to give him the #1 pick for the main event, which is very important here at Daytona.
Checkered flag for Brandon Jessamine, way out ahead of Ryan Mills. The margin of victory, 19 seconds, which was pretty big. Meanwhile, the guys coming in behind him included Shea Bentley, Brett Metcalf, Kelly Smith.
Metcalf was trying some different things, going wide, inside, outside, which you got to try, which he might know for the main event. Will help him out quite a bit.
So getting into the main once again, the top 9 riders out of the 10, whose names you see here. Kelly Smith rounding out the top 5. After he had such a good start, he was able to salvage a 5th place finish. So those men are all into the main event here in the 125. Brandon Jessamine, the winner of the race. We talked to him just after his big win.
All right. Well, you sure tore him up in that heat race, man.
Oh, thanks. You know, my Sobe Suzuki got me out to a great start. I just rode my own race, got the triples down, and came away with the win.
Now, with all these fast guys in line, what's going to be the key to a win here?
Definitely get a good start. Stay out of trouble, put in 15 consistent laps, and if you do that, stay relaxed, I think you're going to be up there.
Talk about track conditions. Each time you go around the track, is it changing?
Oh, yes. The lines change every lap. You got to be smart, look ahead, and pick lines every lap. You know, they could be changed a lot.
Changing conditions, as told to Greg White, Rick Johnson, it's going to be that way all day.
Definitely. The guy who can work this track is going to be out front.
All right, well, we'll be right back. We got a lot more for the Daytona Supercross by Honda. Stay with us. Daytona Gate, after a practice crash, left the series leader on the sideline for round 9. Ford is up and sideways, and they're off. The 250cc main event. Who's going to get the whole shot? Ricky Carmichael by a mile over turn number 1. With the series leader unable to compete, Ricky Carmichael looked to put as much distance and as soon as possible in between himself and the field. He set out with that mission in mind, but Tim Ferry wouldn't let it happen, challenging Carmichael and even making a pass on the inside. It was Tim Ferry looking to pick up the big 25 points for a win and deny Carmichael the opportunity, but not for long. Carmichael making the pass again on Ferry and even changing a tear-off in the air. Next to come after Tim Ferry was Travis Pastrana. The 199 Suzuki kept pace with Carmichael for a while, but then Pastrana's disappointing season continued with yet another DNF. Supercross legend Jeremy McGrath, competing in his final event at Daytona, raced with Ezra Lusk for a while. Lusk on his way forward to finish 3rd, while Jeremy would suffer all day and fade to finish 5th. For Ricky Carmichael, Daytona proved to be not only a friendly place, but a pivotal point in the season. He came in 20 points down on David Vuillemin, but left 5 points ahead of the field. Here we are once again at the Daytona Supercross by Honda. Real nice crowd in the stands, braving what amounts to just kind of inconvenient weather as opposed to totally inclement yesterday. And Ricky Carmichael putting a stamp of authority on his 3rd Daytona Supercross win last year. Can he make 4?
Definitely. Ricky Carmichael has a lot of momentum going into this, and he always looks forward to coming east. Since he's come back, he hasn't lost. He loves the sand, and he's from Florida, so this is his hometown.
Well, Ricky Carmichael in one of the 3 250 heats. Let's take a look at the first one. Ricky Carmichael is not in this one. However, Joaquin Rodriguez on a KTM getting the whole shot, and Vuillemin down in turn number 1 along with another rider. Vuillemin's able to get up and get going again, but he's got a long way to go all the way through the field to get into the top 5. There's only 5 spots transfer.
5 spots, but David Vuillemin coming from Europe, like I said earlier, very good in the sand and also in the mud, so he makes up a lot of ground, but a lot happens later. Here we have Stiles and Evans going back and forth for that qualifying position, so those 2 riders having a good dice, and you can see airing it out here at Daytona.
That would be Tyler Evans on the Suzuki and Clark Stiles on the Honda. And again, these are going for the final transfer position, only the top 5.
These are 2 125 riders. Defending 125 West Coast champion Travis Preston getting the feel for the big bike. He's riding the 450, goes by Tyler Evans. So Travis Preston look for him on the big bikes. And now here comes David Vuillemin.
Vuillemin coming up from behind, made it all the way up into 7th position, passing one rider after another and looking brilliant. And actually, with 7 laps in this heat, looked like he could do it. But then
down with a really, really hard crash. He had 1 lap to go to make that last position on Damon Huffman, and if you see what happened here is he comes up, loses the back wheel a little bit, but he still goes for it. That's what a champion wants to do. He wants to get in right from that heat, but right here, loses wheel spin, drops the front wheel, bails off, so he hits his shoulder and back really, really hard. It'll be interesting to see if he comes back for the semi.
Well, he laid there for quite a while and in fact really affected the outcome of the race. While he was attended to ultimately, David Vuillemin turned out to be okay. But while he was laying there on the track, it set up a last turn, last lap pass by Joshua Woods over fellow KTM rider Joaquin Rodriguez, who had led the entire thing. So Woods picks up the win in heat number 1.
Now, if we take another look at that, Rodriguez changes his line for Vuillemin laying on the ground, and here comes Woods on the inside, comes around, gets a good run, and 2 KTMs. It's good to see them because KTM put a lot of interest into Jeremy McGrath this year and retired, but these 2 guys carrying the torch.
Well, they picked up the top 2 spots with Woods and Rodriguez. Travis Preston coming in there in 3rd position, followed by Ferry and Damon Huffman. Again, the top 5 qualifying in each of 3 heats towards those going directly to the main event. That was heat number 1. Continue with heat number 2 of 3. Sean Hamblin on the Suzuki with a great hole shot, but a big crash right on the finish jump as Kenneth Garcia goes down and stayed there. They red flagged the race and stopped it. First time that's happened in a while, Ricky.
Yeah, unfortunately for myself, in 1987, that happened with me. I don't remember it, that's what they told me, but they did stop the main event at Anaheim, so that's a big accident and the best thing they did.
Hamlin not quite so fortunate, and on the restart, and after they started it for the second time, it was pretty much all Ezra Lusk on his Kawasaki.
Ezra Lusk with a great start. Ezra showed up at Arizona, was the first guy out to clear all the triples, was dominant all night long, beat Chad Reed straight up, beat Ricky Carmichael straight up, so look for him today.
By 23 and with the fastest time of the two heats that have been run so far, Ezra Lusk moves in. Chad Reed was never really able to challenge, nor Larry Ward, all the way back through Sean Hamlin, who qualified along with Heath Voss out of this second heat. So we have 2/3 of our qualifiers directly from the heat set up. The only one you haven't seen yet is the one that involved Ricky Carmichael. We'll show that to you when we come back here to the Daytona Supercross by Honda, working our way towards the main events in the big show. The Daytona Supercross by Honda. The stands continue to fill up here in the big grandstand overlooking the tri-oval at the Daytona International Speedway. And the weather is at least cooperating to the degree that we need to. NASCAR edition of Speed News tonight at 7 o'clock. Join Rick Benjamin and Bob Barsha for all the news you need to know about NASCAR. NASCAR edition Speed News tonight. And then the regular Speed News at 7:30 following NASCAR edition. You're going to find out all about motorsports no matter what kind you like, including the Daytona Supercross by Honda. So the track is still looking pretty good out there right now as we are looking at the track as it exists right now, but we're going to go back and take a look at the third and final heat in the 250 Supercross, and this one did involve Ricky Carmichael as well as number 24 Ernesto Fonseca.
And Ricky Carmichael with a strong start. He's got this thing figured out. Fonseca down in the first turn, so there goes Honda's chance of a 1-2 sweep in this heat. But Ricky Carmichael right back where he left off here at Daytona, out in front and running strong.
A lot of battles going on behind him while Carmichael just scampered away. The 24 there of Fonseca trying to work his way up through the field.
Andrew Short with a hard crash here. He gets a little bit off balance. He's normally a 125 rider around the West Coast, but that 250 horsepower gets a little bit away from him. You'll see on this replay when he comes down, he smashes his head on the handlebars right here, and then he's off towards the back, gasses it, and loops out. He thought he was going to land on the face of it, but hit down on the bottom, looped him out.
So along with those who do not qualify, the young man had to go into the semis and perhaps even the last chance qualifiers, which follow this. But no problem out in front. Ricky Carmichael on cruise control, 5 seconds a lap quicker than second place Danny Smith.
That's one thing. I would love to be the guy that cruises at a 125.5. Ricky Carmichael with the fastest lap, almost 5 seconds a lap. So he's got the combination that Honda's working good for him. He's ready for this Supercross. Danny Smith out there running second. Normally a 125 West Coast guy who, if you can watch here, a little bit of mistake. He's used to 125 power here. The thing jumps out, you know. Part of the thing that Ricky Carmichael had was problem on 250 was looping out in so much horsepower. So some of these 125 guys are getting a feel for that. But Ricky Carmichael, everything is perfect.
Just about perfect this season. Of course, he had the perfect outdoor motocross season, and he takes heat number 3 quite easily. His margin of victory in this one, a whopping 35 seconds, and the fastest race by 3 seconds a lap in here.
Nick Way gets off track, but he's trying to get going. Unfortunately for his Yamaha sponsors, he wraps up a whole 50 feet of Honda banners, and so he's got a little, but now you can't read the Honda banners anymore. But Nick Way with a little bit of trouble, but Nick was very fast in the sand and in the wet this morning.
Hung on for third position there in spite of carrying the banners across the line, just ahead of Keith Johnson and Paul Carpenter. Again, the top 5 qualifying each of the 3 heats that we have seen so far. So let's go downstairs now, and Greg White, who spoke with Ricky Carmichael right after that heat win.
Ricky, that was an awesome performance. Tell us about it.
Thanks. It was good. I got a great start. I got the whole shot. You know, with the rain, the track is kind of one line, so it's really, really important, and that's what I focused on. And I had a couple mistakes the first couple laps, just trying to ride too hard, but everything's looking good for the main event today.
You are looking awful fast. Good luck in the main.
Thanks a lot.
Dominant. What else can you say about Ricky Carmichael? Not only was he 5 seconds a lap quicker than the man who came in runner-up behind him, Danny Smith, but he was 3 seconds a lap quicker than Ezra Lusk, who had the fastest time from heat number 2.
And also, we can't leave out that we saw earlier David Vuillemin, who did not get to run this round. Normally really fast in the sand, fast in the wet. went down in that hard crash. He did not show up for the semi, so that is a very, very tough situation there. But the track is holding up well. Gary Bailey and the whole crew doing an awesome job. They got tractors out in between each heat, taking ruts down, filling ruts up, spreading the sand around. So this has really turned into a typical Daytona track. A lot of whoops, a lot of sand, and you got to use a lot of horsepower.
Well, we're looking forward to the matchup among all the heat winners and the top qualifiers from the heats. Everyone who didn't make it in from the races that you've already seen still have more chances in the semis and last chance qualifier. Once again now, let's go to the Hollywood Hotel overlooking Victory Lane and Mr. Ralph Shaheen.
All right, guys, thanks. And joining me in the booth here now, he made his way up to our booth over Victory Lane here. Travis Pastrana, good to see you here, but it would be much better to see you out there.
Much better.
How's the rehab coming, and what's wrong with you?
Doing great, actually, on the rehab. Should be back in about 2 weeks riding, and maybe the last 2 Supercrosses racing for Sobi Suzuki. I mean, it's a shame. Our whole team was bummed out. We had such a good program coming in, but just got knee surgery, my last one 2 weeks ago, and I'm looking forward to getting back out here and racing with these guys.
Yeah, and you had the knee problems and then the shoulder stuff. So how's this all coming together?
Everything's really worked out for the best. The knee, I was probably going to keep pushing through, and I had a lot of bone chips and cartilage floating around. So when I did the shoulder, that was the last straw. I had nothing else. I did it in the swimming pool, so that was a little bit bummed out on that one, to say the least. But it's just been real loose from previous crashes.
And not a real good war story either, is it?
No, I would have made something up if I had the time, trust me.
Now, give us your impressions of what you see out of the racetrack here today. What can we expect as far as the quality of the race?
Quality of the race is going to be good. This is going to mix it up a lot. If you look out there, I mean, we're threatening rain. The track's muddy. It's different conditions. It's outdoor. It's going to be a really, really different race from anything we've seen so far.
Do you think it favors anybody? Does it take maybe an emphasis off of some of the factory guys and maybe give one of the privateer guys a shot?
Well, the last time a privateer rider ever won was Daytona here in the mud. So there's definitely a shot. But, you know, a lot of the guys now, there's so many different teams out there, and it's really good because everyone that has a shot really has a shot with the good equal bike. So it's good.
Got to ask you real quick as we're going to break. We've seen you fly into the bay. We've seen you jump canyons. You've had a lot of time to sit around and think about it now while you're rehabbing. What are you going to do for big publicity when you come back?
Not publicity. I got to win races, man. Races. Win, win, win. That's what I'm focusing on.
All right. I'm sure he's got some crazy idea cooking up in his mind. Good luck in the Outdoor Nationals later this year. Stay with us. We're coming right back to Daytona. More Supercross coming up.
Speedway, but we've got lots more ready for you tomorrow. Starting at 9 o'clock in the morning, get up, make sure you got your coffee in your hand. The Daytona 2003 preview show, then the MBNA 250 Grand Prix at 9:30 in its entirety live. At 10:30, Pro Honda Oil's U.S. Supersport, also live from start to finish. And live again at 11:30. We're on the air all day long. It's the BMW Motorrad Boxer Cup with our own Greg White competing in that event. And then we keep going just after noon. It's non-stop with the Daytona 200 pre-race show at 12:30, and then the green flag for the Daytona 200 by Arai at 1 o'clock. After that, we're still going with the Genuine Suzuki Accessories Super Stock event. Defending champion Jimmy Moore returning to go for not only his second consecutive Daytona win, but his third championship. So stay with us from all of that. Well, we're still working our way towards the main events here. Some results from the last chance qualifier in the 125 class. Kevin Johnson ran off from the beginning, and along with the 3 men behind him, Humphrey, Marsack, and Sheely, who just missed qualifying in his heat race, they go to the main event on Yamahas and Suzuki's respectively. And then we switched over to the 250 semifinals. And in the first one,
it was Tyler Evans. Tyler Evans with that Suzuki out in front. Was very close in the heat race, but he was able to pull it together. Tyler's normally a 125 guy, but now showing some strong results in the semis.
Evans and Stiles had battled in the heat races for 6th and 7th places just outside those that qualified. They ended up battling for the win in the first of the 2 semifinals and move on to the main a little bit more the hard way. Now in semi number 2, it was all Ernesto Fonseca. He had crashed in his heat race, came back in convincing style to win semi number 2.
Ernesto Fonseca, normally one of the top runners to come out of the first heat, but like you said, he went down the first turn, had to run this semi, but he has got a little extra time on the track and might help him in the main. 6
advancing out of each of the 2 semis to go along with the 15 that we had earlier. That's 27. 3 more in the last chance qualifier. And this one was all number 975 running out in front. Kevin Johnson, who had also had a difficult time in the heat.
That's Boroff out in front.
John Boroff.
John Boroff. Normally not running the Supercross Series, but was out in front and looked very, very strong. Dave Castillo going down. He was trying to go into the transfer spot, but Boroff was the rider out in front. And you can see he's pumped. No, it doesn't matter if you're winning a last chance qualifier or main event. A win's a win.
John Bora from Lake City, Tennessee on a Honda takes it over Metz and Wilson. Those last three go into the main event. And let's go downstairs now to Greg White.
Well, thanks, Brian. The word down here on the racetrack is ruddy. Everybody I've talked to says ruddy, 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 ruddy. You can see they are deep. They are nasty. This racetrack is wet in some spots. Down here in this corner, it's loose. In other parts of the racetrack, it's hard. And just an update on David Vuillemin. His back, he's at the doctor right now. They're getting it checked out. That's why he's not here today. Brian?
So shades of 2002 for David Vuillemin. He wasn't able to start at all. This time he got through a heat race but crashed. He will not compete. The man who was third in points will not be there, but lots of others will. Daytona 125 here, round 4 of the East Division in 125 Supercross. So we're ready to go, and so are the riders themselves. All the mechanics are down there making some last-minute engine revving. And Ricky Johnson, the champ here alongside of me, tell me what this is like. I mean, this is nerves. You got to have nerves of steel to deal with this, don't you?
Well, that's the one thing with Supercross and motocross that's different than most other sports. You start everybody all at once behind a gate. Now, there's different positions inside versus outside that can be better, but you also have to deal with the ruts. You cannot prep on the far side of the gate. You can do whatever you want behind with no tools. You can use your feet and pack down your starting position, but you cannot do anything on the other side of the gate. We're looking at Brock Selleck and Brandon Jessamine side by side. The 2 point leaders that are dicing back and forth. Jessamine is in a little bit better spot because you always like to be on the inside if you're coming into a turn with your competitors. So look at these two guys, both of them very fierce competitors, and they don't mind rubbing a little paint.
You'll also be looking for the number 3 of Mike Brown out of Johnson City, Tennessee on a Kawasaki. He's sitting second in points right now. So the main players in this little drama are Jessamine, number 26, Brown, number 3, and Brock Seller's number 18. There is Brownie.
Yeah, you'll see some of the riders reaching forward and clicking something in their front wheel. What they have now is a device that they can squeeze their suspension up, push a button, and it holds their suspension locked. As soon as they hit the brakes going into the first turn, it releases it, lets the suspension full travel, but it lets them get out of the gate a little bit harder, keeps it in that stink bug fashion so it doesn't want to wheelie as much. So if you see some riders or mechanics helping the riders out in the front wheel, that's what they're hooking up.
Guaranteed Pierre Karsmakers didn't have that gizmo on his bike when he won the first Daytona Supercross here.
Pierre Karsmakers is one of the toughest men in motocross. His training ritual, the crowd is going nuts. Everybody is excited about this Daytona Supercross, and the weather's cooperating with it. It's a little gray, but it's still great racing weather.
Jessamine, Brown, and Sellers side by side on the far side of the gate. A little bit of a sprinkle coming down out there right now. And there are the 3 men, 318 and 26, top 3 in points, and they're all going to be right next to one another going down into turn number 1.
Now, if you look, you can see Jessamine's forks working up and down. He's chosen not to lock down his forks because he wants a little more traction towards that rear wheel. So let's see if it works for him.
Off they go. The gate is down. The whole shot comes from 4 on the right side of the field, but out through the middle, it is one of the Yamahas, and it is Brock Sellers with the whole shot, and 3 riders clear of the field out in front. Curry actually with the whole shot, number 45.
And Brandon Jessamine with a bad start, but works his way through the inside. But now we're looking at Shea Bentley, I think, pretty sure with the whole shot. He's running strong. He's a past Supercross champion, so watch Shea Bentley out in front on that Suzuki.
Well, Curry got the whole shot into turn number 1. He slipped back into 3rd spot. Sellers was 4th off the line, but now you're looking at the leaders, and Jessamine is right there. He had a very bad start. He was out 8th off the line across the finish line for the first time.
Jessamine and Brown both towards the back, but they both showed that they have a lot of speed. Shea Bentley was strong in the heat, and he's also a past champion, so he knows what to do out there. But those 2 guys had quicker times behind him.
Rippling off the jumps right now. You're looking at number 45, and that is Curry, who got the whole shot. Paul Curry out of Wesley Chapel, Florida on a Yamaha.
The track is grooving up. They've done a really good job with opening up the corners, flattening some of the turns so the riders can run multiple lines. Ricky Carmichael was talking about how it's one line, but now you can see the riders getting side by side.
Challenge for the lead, and we are up front here taking a look at
Metcalf. He gets a lead. He gets a run on Shea Bentley and out to the front. We've talked earlier about how strong the KTMs are. Their motor has always been the strong spot. If there is an Achilles heel on them, they don't have a linkage in the back suspension. They're working on that for next year, but motor is very, very strong on that 125 KTM.
Metcalf bogging down just a little bit, and it gave a bit of a run there to Shea Bentley, but he's still out in front. It is Brett Metcalf from California on the KTM 125 out in the front. Second place is Shea Bentley.
Metcalf's still very, very strong. Out in front, like we said earlier, power is everything. But here we see Mike Brown, number 3 on that Kawasaki, and here comes Brandon Jessamine. Those two riders have gone from 12th, now they're in 3rd and 4th place, so that is your race. Watch those two riders, they're moving forward.
Two of the championship contenders up into 3rd and 4th position. Sellards is right behind them in 5th. So our championship guys were side by side at the start. Now they're nose to tail on the racetrack. Meanwhile, out in front is Brett Metcalf.
Metcalf is out front, and Bentley is feeling a lot of pressure from Brown. Brown is all over him and working that traffic.
Here comes Mike Brown through the whoops. Up next in the tribal section of the racetrack, pulls alongside, takes over the number 2 spot from Shea Bentley. Can he hold it?
Runs it on the outside, but then Shea Bentley runs right around the outside on the next corner, which typically you don't see, but there goes Brown. Running, keeping his momentum up and keeping that power. But Bentley, a small guy, and that Suzuki is very, very strong. He gets back out in front of him.
What a fight. Brett Metcalf coming under pressure right now with this great battle for 2nd position. Shea Bentley holding on to him, and look through the whoops goes Mike Brown. Into the turn, bogs it down a little bit, but still holds on to the number 2 spot.
And Jessamine rounding off that top 4. So Jessamine being very patient. Same with Brown. Both of these guys can see the leaders, and they're just working lap by lap.
Great battle here for the number 2 spot. Meanwhile, Brett Metcalf running scared out in front. Brown in the number 2 spot, starting to edge away just a little bit. And Sellards coming up from behind.
Well, here we see Jessamine working hard. Oh, and he gets a little bit swapping side by side. I love that shot where you can see the different riders working the different angles. But now Jessamine falling back just a little bit and gives Brown and Bentley a little bit of breathing room.
Mike Brown on the number 3 Kawasaki in 2nd position, settling in, trying to get something going after the leader, Brett Metcalf. And then behind him, it is Jessamine and Bentley in 3rd spot still. Jessamine Sellards running 4th and 5th.
There you see Metcalf with the lead and Brown reeling him in slowly but surely. But if you notice, the riders are taking different lines. Some inside to outside, some outside to inside. And you can see that it works one versus the other. So Brown's a very, very talented, experienced rider. He's going to try a lot of different lines because remember in the heat race, he could catch up, but he would have trouble getting roosted, and he'd fall back. So maybe he won't make that same mistake. He'll ride some opposite lines.
Mike Brown gaining on the leader, Brett Metcalf. 2.3 seconds at the finish line. Last time by, it's half that right now. And you can see Mike Brown coming on him really hard here as Metcalf is still trying to hold on to the lead and doing it well.
And just out of our picture, Brandon Jessamine has got by Shea Bentley, and now he's working on those two riders. So the race that we've been looking at all day long is going to be Brown and also Jessamine, but Metcalf doing a very, very good job. Oh, when he goes down very hard.
Oh, and
also, Brown gets stuck. This is a gift for Jessamine, but Brown was able to get away. It's good to see Metcalf get off. That was a very hard crash.
Mike Brown manages to hold on to the spot, but Jessamine is right there, and we're still having trouble trying to get the number 123 of Brett Metcalf going. Now he does, and he's lost a whole bunch of positions.
That's the same place that took out David Vuillemin in the heat race. So Metcalf, a very tough guy. And a lot of times you can fall in the same place with the same speed, but you do not. A lot of times you can hit a little softer. Take another look. He drops the front wheel, down he goes, and luckily he gets away from the bike, and the bike doesn't hit him. But Mike Brown gets stuck on top of him. But fortunately for Mike, he keeps it rolling. Jessamine keeps his head, and there's Shea Bentley. So a big gift for those guys, and very good to see Metcalf get back up.
Mike Brown, your new leader, finished second here in the 125, both in 2001 and in 2002, looking to improve on that position by a spot and get on top of the podium. He's running out in front right now.
These are your two leaders, Jessamine, who's your point leader, and Brown, who's right up in there in the top 5 in points as well. And now that's your race going back and forth. Jessamine's sort of sizing him up, but Brown is a very, very tough guy. He's won outdoor championships, so do not expect him to roll over. He's going to fight with everything he's got.
He's been racing here in the Supercross by Daytona, going for the lead. Mike Brown is right there.
And Jessamine gets by, squeaks by on the inside. It's the same timing section where Brown was so strong. He got bit by the same place that he did so much damage on earlier.
So Brandon Jessamine takes the lead here on the 3rd lap, coming up to finish 4 laps in this one. On the 4th lap right now.
And you got to remember how fast Jessamine was in his qualifier, so if Brown lets him get away, he's going to have trouble reeling him back in. So he needs to keep pressure on Jessamine, but Jessamine's got about 5 bike lengths, which is going to give him a little bit of breathing room.
Points leader in the 125 East Supercross Series, Brandon Jessamine out in front right now. With a couple of seconds lead over Mike Brown as they cross the start-finish line that time. Brown still trying to hang in there and perhaps come back.
Jessamine with a very, very comfortable lead, but now Bentley has sort of gotten his second win. A lot of times you go out there, your first couple laps leading like that, you sort of pump up, But Bentley looks like he's working his way back up, and here comes Brock Sellers as well.
A 15-lap race, so there's still a long way to go. Jessamine has taken the lead over Mike Brown, with Shea Bentley in third spot, Sellers fourth, and Kelly Smith running in fifth position. You're looking at the leader, Brandon Jessamine, doing what he does at Daytona. Your leader is Brandon Jessamine on a Suzuki out of Pennsylvania at the Daytona Supercross by Honda. And Mike Brown is staying right with him. Jessamine took the lead fairly easily, but Mike Brown has gathered himself now and kept himself in striking distance, Ricky.
Mike Brown is a veteran. He's been to Europe. He's raced GPs. He's not going to give up. He's won 125 championships by staying in the fight. And Mike Brown is going to continue to do that. But even though Brandon Jessamine has some of the quicker lap times on that Soba Suzuki, he still has a lot to track, and he has to think about a lot. And also, take a look at Shea Bentley that's back there. He is not out of the game. Also, Brock Sellers. You can see the top 4 guys all in the hunt still.
Working after the leader, Brandon Jessamine, is Mike Brown, the veteran who has at least raced here at Daytona at least 11 years. In 1992, he finished 12th in the 125E Supercross event, so Brown really is a veteran.
Yeah, Brown's been around, and he came over, he was riding, he was one of the young hopefuls, rode for Mitch Payton the Pro Circuit, then went over to Europe and raced for a while, then came back with a second win, and that's when he won his outdoor championship.
Brandon Jessamine has really lit this place up. Greg White, a little more on our leader?
Yeah, he just went by the pit where they hold up the pit boards, and on the pit board it said relax and practice. And the reason they're telling him practice, his mechanic wants him to think that this is practice, not the fact that he's racing, to help him relax and get him to the checkered flag. Brian?
Well, one of the things that Greg's talking about, I used to do that. You get out in front, you get the pressure of the world on your shoulders, and a lot of times when you go out in practice, you run fast lap after fast lap after fast lap, and his body's in shape to where he can run this whole moto no problem. It's the nerves of being out in front. So if he just goes out there and attacks the track, doesn't worry about Brown behind him, he should walk away with this.
His best lap, minute 27 seconds, while he was chasing the leader. Since he's been out front, he's running 28.8. That was the pace that he ran during his heat race.
Very, very strong. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of lap they finish on, because a lot of times the riders will fall quite tremendously, and that's due to the track, but he's running strong.
Brandon Jessamine out in front right now. He's got to hold it together. Relax indeed is a very important thing for him to do as he clears a big jump here, one of the many at the Daytona Supercross by Honda track.
Shea Bentley cannot make a mistake. Brock Sellers, very, very strong. He's won one of the races earlier this year, so he cannot make a mistake. One bobble, he's going to drop back to 4th place. So Shea Bentley better keep up the pressure, and also he can't lose sight of the leaders. He's got to keep in touch. Oh, and Jessamine goes down, come right across the mechanics area, and he goes to 2nd, now to 3rd.
Brock Sellers coming up behind him, but he gets it going to hang on to 3rd position. So Brandon Jessamine, the leader, goes down, but he manages to minimize the damage by staying in 3rd spot. Now Sellers really has something to shoot for.
Yeah, Sellers made a small mistake. Now we're going to take another look at the crash. Jessamine comes around. As he comes through the corner, he digs in. As he starts to accelerate, he just loses the front wheel, gets hooked in a rut, and goes down. Just a simple little crash. Really not, I hate to say it's not his fault, but that kind of thing happens. He just lost the front wheel, the knobby's grabbed a little bit, and back he goes. But if he runs the pace that he had earlier, he can catch Brown.
Mike Brown is your leader once again, running 128.2 seconds on his best lap. And Jessamine, though, up on his bike and back on the charge here from 3rd. He's going to be attacking 2nd position very quickly, and that is Shea Bentley.
You can see all 3 of those riders right there, and so now Brandon still has a lot of time. He's pushing hard on Shea Bentley. He's got to keep his momentum going, but Shea's a tough guy. He's not going to let him he's not going to move out of the way in any way, shape, or form for Brandon Jessamine.
Jessamine coming up from behind, looking to pull alongside, but Shea Bentley doing a good job. There he is in the air and lands it nicely. Right behind him it is Brandon Jessamine. So this is the battle for 2nd position. Brock Sellers not too far behind, hoping perhaps that those two, by racing each other, might slow themselves down a little bit.
Jessamine's last lap was a 1:27.46, and Mike Brown was a 1:28.27, so almost a second quicker. So, but he cannot get stuck behind Bentley. He's got to get going.
There's Brock Sellers in 4th position right now. The man who's 3rd in points. Mike Brown is 2nd in points, but leading this race. Brock Sellers on his Yamaha out of Ohio.
Brock Sellers has been very, very strong, very fast in practice. Also, Brock rode some of the 120 or 250 on the West Coast earlier this year and was very, very quick. A very fast rider, very strong rider, so don't look for him to be fading very much.
Mike Brown, the leader, 7 laps into this one, just short of halfway right now. A 15-lap event, and you're watching Shea Bentley on the number 104 being chased by Brandon Jessamine on the 26.
Remember we talked about how one small mistake and you go from a chance to a chump in just one bump, and Brandon Jessamine with a small mistake went from a strong lead now to a distant 3rd place. He's got to work on get by Bentley so he doesn't get his goggles too roosted up and head after Brown if he wants still a shot at this win.
Bentley with his fastest lap of the race after he went down, and so he's really on a mission, but he has not been able to do a whole lot with Shea Bentley. It seems like adrenaline carried him up to the back wheel of the rider in front of him, but now he's just got to use his head to try to get by and make the pass. We'll be back to the 125 main in a moment here in Daytona.
Now.
Back at Daytona, your leader is Mike Brown, but behind him things are changing quickly as side by side goes Shea Bentley and Brandon Jessamine. Jessamine pulled ahead. Now he's got a couple of lap riders in front of him. He was actually repassed by Bentley briefly, but now is taking the lead and is starting to pull away. His only mission now is to go after Mike Brown, who is 7 seconds ahead of him.
Yeah, he's got to make up that 7 seconds, but if he runs the pace that he was, he can get there. Now that he has clean air, we're going to take a look at that pass. But ironically, he passed Shea Bentley in the same place where he went down. They come into that same exact corner where Brandon fell down. He ran the outside, sort of used the lapper as a pick, got in there, got out, and made the move on Shea.
So Brandon Jessamine now in 2nd position. Take another look at it here from a slightly different angle. Little mistake.
Taking another look. Shea Bentley cases it really hard, throws his hand off the bar, and then Brandon Jessamine just carried the momentum, and on by he went.
Although Bentley did pull alongside right there, but then began to lose ground, and Brandon Jessamine continued on to maintain the 2nd position. Now he's trying to pull away, and he's trying to bring back that 7-second advantage here. While Brown ran a minute 32nd lap last time, Jessamine ran a minute 31. He's not going to make up any ground that way.
There's always the fox and the hound. Now it is Brown, the fox, and now that Jessamine is the hound, so he can just chase, and all he has to worry about is catching Brown. He can look in for the distance, and when you're out in front and you see someone catching you, that's when you start to tighten up.
Here's Mike Brown. Take another look. Not an error-free ride for him by any means, making some small mistakes here and there. That's going to cost him some time, and that one, yeah.
That one hurt. That one hurt as well. He may not slow him down much, but it definitely hurts and takes a little chink out of your armor. But when you're out in front, you're trying everything. This track is so tricky. A lot of people might think, it's just a sand track. But when you're trying to race fast, you have sand. You're going to hard pack jumps. You're doing all these different things, and you're trying to have your bike work the best for everything. It's a lot to consume when you're out there.
We're on lap number 10. Once again, downstairs, Greg White.
Well, thanks, Brian. Well, RJ, as you know, confidence is everything in this game. And down here in the pits, they're very concerned. Mike Brown's crew, he keeps looking back, and they're telling him, look ahead and concentrate. He's very self-critical of his riding, and he's been down a little bit on himself lately, so they're very interested to see if he can pull off this win, not only for the race team, for Kawasaki, but also for his confidence. Brian?
4th and a pair of seconds for Mike Brown thus far in the 3 races in the 125E series. That has him in 2nd position. Brock Sellards behind him has a 2nd place, a win, and a 7th position. So you can see that Brown, if nothing else, has been pretty consistent with 4th and 2 seconds.
Well, there's the difference. Like you said, it's still about 7 seconds. Actually, it's up to 9 seconds now. So Brown is running very, very strong. Jessamine can't afford to relax. He's got to keep pushing hard to get through. And Mike Brown takes his racing very serious. He's one of the only guys that can go out on a bicycle, I've heard, with Ricky Carmichael and put him behind.
So Mike Brown making minute 32nd laps while Jessamine does a minute 31 behind him. So that's the reason why it went from 7 to 9 seconds. Brown is definitely on a very consistent and relatively quick pace, although Jessamine was capable of 127 laps earlier in the race. You'd have to think he'll pick it up to that pace again if he wants to try to catch Mike Brown.
Yeah, right now it's going to be just a chess game. They're both going to run as fast as they can. The sun is just starting to come out. It looks, you can see the shine. But the track is in awesome shape. It's very tricky, very difficult for the riders to keep going fast. But there's your margin of distance. You see Mike Brown swapping from side to side, and that was Jessamine just going into the hairpin at the far side.
Weaving his way through some traffic now is Mike Brown, your leader, with 10 laps gone out of a 15-lap race here. He's got 2/3 of the distance, works inside the lap rider and jets away, still trying to put some distance and some riders perhaps in between himself and Brandon Jessamine, who's chasing in 2nd position. There goes Brown in one direction. Just can't quite see him, but Brandon Jessamine going the other way at the top of the screen. Mike Brown is your leader on his Kawasaki, looking for his first win of the 2003 season, and it'll be here at Daytona. Four laps to go now for Mike Brown, and his lead is back down in the 7-second range. So another minute and 32nd lap that time by Brandon Jessamine to a minute 32 by Mike Brown has made the difference. Jessamine's coming after it.
Jessamine definitely wants this race. I mean, he was so strong in the heat race. When you're that dominant, you make a mistake like he did, he's going to be very critical of himself and push himself all the way to the checkered flag.
The lap riders getting the move over flag, and they're accommodating the officials here, the AMA officials, as Mike Brown kind of landed on top of that jump. Now he's just trying to make his way to the finish line. Again, inside 4 laps to go, and just under 8 seconds back is Brandon Jessamine in second position right now, working his way past the same lap riders that Brown saw just a few seconds earlier.
All it's going to take is one hiccup by Brown, and Jessamine's going to be back in the game. But once again, same thing can happen to Jessamine. This is the kind of racetrack that it sneaks up and bites you. When you're racing the real technical indoor supercross tracks with the really peaky jumps, you know when you make a mistake. Out here, you're racing along, and all of a sudden the track just bites you and you go down. Or if you just even let off, it'll drop you down a second in the lap time.
Picking his way through the whoops there, and still no Brandon Jessamine in immediate sight as they work their way over this double jump here.
Triple jump to some. Now that blue and yellow flag is the move over flag. That lets the riders know that the leaders are coming up behind them to get out of the way or just to hold their line. A lot of times they'll emphasize that in the riders meeting. Don't move from one side to the other because the guy might be passing you, but just hold your line, and the leaders will adjust as they come up to you.
He went past the 7:57. That was Kevin Johnson, who won the last chance qualifier to get into this 125 main, so he's gone a lap down. He's running in 13th position, so your leader, Mike Brown, has only 12 riders on the lead lap with him.
Our race for third place, Shea Bentley has dropped his goggles. That's going to be trouble. Brock Sellers is coming up behind him, so that is the race on the track right now. The first and second have moved out. Their gap between each other, 9 seconds.
Whoa, Brown, there's the mistake.
There's the mistake that we were talking about. The same thing, just a simple layover. Let's see what this does for Jessamine. Still doesn't give him enough ground to get on his tail.
Brandon Jessamine saw Mike Brown go down and get back up very quickly, so the gap is going to be significantly smaller, but Mike Brown still has a pretty good cushion to work with behind him.
He's probably just now exhaling. We're going to take another look at this. We've got 2 different angles. Mike Brown comes in. He's been running this jump, landing, sitting down, puts the foot out as he comes into the corner, just sort of drops his front wheel and hooks as he comes around, hooks his foot, and he just tips over. You know, I mean, that happens with this with the sand. Watching here, as he jumps off, notice he sits down, hits his foot, puts a lot of weight onto the front wheel. As he digs into the berm, it hooks his leg, pulls his leg back, and down he goes.
He fell right over, but he still kept the lead.
It is the less of the 2 evens between Jessamine's crash and Brown's crash, but still a crash nevertheless.
So the difference now is 6 seconds, and the battle for third is heating up as Shane Bentley comes into the clutches of Brock Sellers. They're only about a second apart, and you can see how far that is here on the Daytona Supercross track.
Every lap that Shea Bentley comes up on is going to kill him because you can see, he has to close his eyes. He can't see around these guys, so every time that he comes up behind somebody, he's basically losing time to Sellers, and that's when Sellers is making the room on him right there.
Just a matter of time, you would think, before Brock Sellers, who still has his goggles, would be able to make a pass of Shea Bentley, who does not. They both work past the lap rider, and Sellers still trying to get up there.
That worked out very well. That Steve Boniface was in that first turn crash with Mills, and so 2 riders that are normally up front, Mills and Boniface, were stuck in the back because they were in the first turn crash. But here we're looking at Shea Bentley and here is Brock Sellers trying to work his way back up to him. So these 2 riders working very hard late in the race.
Late in the race indeed, 13 laps gone, 2 to go for the leader. Not everybody has crossed start-finish line to finish up 13 laps, but 2 laps remain for the leader, Mike Brown. Brandon Jessamine just 6 seconds back, and it's difficult to say whether those 6 seconds can be made up on the racetrack. It's going to take another mistake by Mike Brown in order for Jessamine to be able to get it.
If Jessamine starts running lap times like he did earlier, he could get after him. Now we're showing the white flags. We only have 1 lap to go, so Jessamine's going to have to pull something out of his hat. He better have something up his sleeve if he's going to try to get it. But there are a lot of lappers. Brown could get caught up.
He held the gap at the same 6-second margin. So Mike Brown just has to cruise another lap here. The longest lap in Supercross is here at the Daytona International Speedway. So Mike Brown has to make that entire minute 30-second lap. He'll be the winner here today.
Watching Shea Bentley still running very strong. My hat's off to him. It's really, really hard to run out there, even by yourself, with that much sand clicking in your eyes and stuff. And so you doing a great job. But Mike Brown is the man of the hour. He's out in front. If he doesn't make a mistake, he'll bring home this win.
Took another look back there, probably to the chagrin of his crew, as we heard Greg White report on. They don't want him to look back. They only want him to look forward. Forward, the only one thing waiting for him is the finish line for Mike Brown. There's still riders going down on the racetrack. Here's the number 104 of Shea Bentley, still holding off Brock Sellers with a tremendously gritty ride to get on the podium.
Yeah, Shea's made a good comeback, but once again, we're watching Brown. He's not making any mistakes, not over jumping. He's going to go ahead and probably lose that lead, lose that gap that he has, but he's going to walk home with the checkered flag unless he makes a really big mistake.
Mike Brown working his way towards the finish line and doesn't have far to go. Just through this section of small jumps that bit David Vuillemin earlier in the heat races. Mike Brown now comes around a stalled rider. One more turn to go as he makes the left. He'll see the finish line jump, and for the first time in the 2003 season of the 125 East Supercross, Mike Brown comes home a winner. Yeah, that makes him mighty happy.
Very, very happy. Brandon Jessamine, then Bentley, then Sellers. These guys have all put in really, really gritty rides. But my hat's off to Mike Brown. He stayed in the game and never gave up.
Lynching his eyes across the finish line comes Shea Bentley to take third position behind Brandon Jessamine by about 4 seconds, and just a few seconds ahead of Brock Sellers. So Mike Brown is celebrating. He's going to paint his own personal signature on the big DAY-TONA at Daytona International Speedway.
He also runs that Dale Earnhardt number 3, so a little respect to Dale.
There you go. Mike Brown winning here at Daytona. Something that he has not done in the past. Not only is it his first win of the 2003 season, it is his first win here at Daytona International Speedway. No wonder he was so happy crossing the start-finish line.
I mean, this is a big event. I've always thought if you can win the opener at Anaheim and win Daytona, those are the two biggest races of the year. So for Mike Brown to walk home with his victory is going to mean a lot to Mitch Payton and the whole Pro Circuit team.
So he's posing for the photographers right now and being congratulated. As you can see, our Greg White standing by to talk to Mike Brown, the winner of this race. So let's go downstairs to Greg White.
Mike, that was an awesome race. Even with mistakes, you still pulled off that victory in fine style.
Yeah, for sure. You know, all I had to do was just ride and try not to make as many mistakes as I did. I was lucky that Brandon made a mistake, and, you know, I got some distance on him there. So, and I made a mistake back there, so I think he gained it back up. And I'm just pumped. This is the biggest win after my national championship 2 years ago, and I just want to keep it going.
Well, congratulations. Brian?
Our congratulations to Mike Brown as well, winning on a Kawasaki, something that Ricky Carmichael did earlier in his career in 250. Here you can see the top 10, Brown, Jessamine, and Bentley, who held off Brock Sellers to take that final podium spot. Didn't see a lot of Kelly Smith. He just rode a very calm, quiet race into 5th position. The rest of the results from the Daytona Supercross 125 main event here today. And what a terrific one it was. For Mike Brown, a day to remember, no question about it. We've still got a lot more memories in store for you. So enjoy a few, and we'll come back and give you some more.
By Honda on Speed is brought to you by Yamaha, makers of fine motorcycles and ATVs. Nobody's more in tune with motorsports than Yamaha. And Dunlop. No other tire has won more AMA championships than Dunlop. Whether you ride on-road or off, ride on the winningest tires in history.
Getting ready for the 250 main event here at the Daytona Supercross by Honda at the International Speedway. The world capital of speed here, but coming up on Speed Channel, the Mobil 1, 12 hours of Sebring in nearby Sebring, Florida, one of the great and historic events in all of motorsports. Join everybody that will be bringing that one to you here. ALMS Racing at Sebring, 12 hours. That's going to be terrific. Now, speaking of history, before we get started with this 250 main event, we want to give you a little bit of the sense of the history of Supercross racing. It all began here in Daytona, and we return once again to that very place. History was made on March 9th, 1974, the first ever 250 AMA Supercross. Pierre Karsmakers won and went on to take the 3-race series. In the 500 class that day, eventual legend Roger DeCoster took top honors in his first and only AMA victory. Ron Lacheyne's first career AMA 250 Supercross win on June 11, 1983 was the series 100th race. Lacheyne would go on to win 7 more AMA 250 mains, but none perhaps more meaningful than that first one in Orlando, Florida. The 200th Series race was a fight to the finish for not only the checkered flag, but also the 1990 championship. The time winding down, Damon Bradshaw led Jean-Michel Bale. If the Frenchman Bale could get by the feisty North Carolinian, then he would have a shot at the 250 title. If not, a calm, cool Stanton was ready to claim it with a 5th place ride behind Johnny O'Mara and Mike Kudrowski. With a half a lap remaining, it would all come down to this battle for the lead.
Still on in front. Bale's going to try it right here. Oh, Bale got him! Jean-Michel Bale, David's got it back! It is Bradshaw! Here comes Bale! Here comes Bradshaw! It's going to be a drag race! Whoa! The win is going to go to David Brown! No! No! He's got it! Bradshaw wins! Oh my God! Kudrowski finishes third, O'Mara fourth. But meanwhile, Jeff Stanton is the Supercross champion!
With Supercross in its 23rd year, the AMA 250 Series reached another milestone with its 300th race. Doug Henry led the series, but hole shot artist Jeff Emig put his Cowie into the lead and somehow avoided disaster after picking up a banner in his rear wheel. The banner would eventually work its way out before destroying the rear brake. Emig would maintain his advantage over the rest of the field. Jeremy McGrath, the series defending champ, had another rough day after starting well, but he faded outside the top 5. Number 20, Doug Henry, would charge hard all race and eventually work himself onto the podium. The Rocket, Mike LaRocco, blasted his way forward, and if he had another lap, might just have caught Emig, who cruised into the checkered flags and eventually his first ever 250 title. A day short of 29 years later, we're here at Daytona.
And it looks just like it did back when Pierre Karsmakers won that very first event here and set off the Supercross juggernaut that we now know here in 2003. Let's go once again to the studio and Ralph Shaheen downstairs.
Well, another guest joining us here in the booth today, Pierre Karsmakers, one of the living legends of Daytona and of motorcycle racing in general, a man who won the Daytona Supercross twice, as well as numerous motocross championships and Supercross championships along the way. You won the first time here in the dry, the second time the very next year in the wet. How different is Supercross racing here at Daytona between the dry and the wet?
Well, the dry, the speed is of course a little bit higher, and when it's wet, it's more demanding, it's more tiring. You make more mistakes because it's more slippery, and it exhausts you more.
About 30 years ago, you won your first championship, and I guess the suspension travel back then would have been about 6 inches, now maybe about 14, 15 inches.
Yes.
How much different is it when you look back at it and you think about the beating you took on one of those bikes compared to what we're seeing technologically today?
Well, we took a lot of beating at that time. We really had to work with our body a lot to keep the bike where we wanted it to be. And now the bikes have a lot more suspension, so you can jump a lot farther and higher and smoother. So, you know, it changed a lot. And also the riders are dancing more on motorcycles nowadays than we did. We had to fight the bike more at that era.
Riders rehabbing their bodies between races is certainly important. What did you do to stay physically in shape? I mean, we hear about all the things that guys do today. What did you do to stay in shape and then get yourself ready to go again the next round?
Well, after the race, on Mondays, I always took it easy. I ran maybe 5, 6, 7 miles slowly, just to get a work up a sweat again. And then on Tuesday, I started working out harder again. And Wednesdays and Thursdays, I rode the bike always, 2 times 45 minutes. And then, well, Fridays was always our traveling day, fly to the races. And then on Saturdays, I would do a light training again, sometimes practice on the bike, if they allowed us to, and then Sunday was race day again.
Yeah, and I know...
So I was almost every day working on it.
And obviously you were really into your physical fitness, and I've heard that you think the Hurricane's pretty much out of shape. Bob Hanna's just not holding up his stuff anymore?
Right now, you mean? I don't know. Well, I still ride a lot myself. I like to stay in shape, and I really love motorcycle riding a lot. And you know, that's how you can stay in shape a little bit also if you love your hobby. And I don't know what those guys are doing now, but I'm still having a lot of fun doing it.
Well, in his 50s, but a true motocross, supercross legend, still riding on a regular basis. Pierre Karsmakers, thanks for stopping by. Enjoy your time here in Bike Week.
Thank you.
Stay with us. Speed Channel's returning to the Daytona Supercross by Honda after this.
And this is the moment you've been waiting for on Speed, the Daytona Supercross by Honda 250 main event here at Daytona International Speedway. The man who leads the points, the man who's won here 3 times in a row, is right there, front and center on the starting line. We'll take a look at the starting grid for this one and show you all the faces of the men and machines who will be competing. Leading off and starting with Ricky Carmichael on his Honda, with Ezra Lusk, Joshua Woods, and Danny Smith, the top 4. And it's Reed Rodriguez, who had a very surprising ride here. Nick Way, who's really on a roll here lately. Heath Johnson, we saw him come through the heats with Tim Ferry there. And this is the rest of the field for the 250 main. 30 riders, a larger field than would normally be in a Supercross, Ricky Johnson.
Definitely, normally they qualify down to 21 riders. Now they got 30. Daytona puts more money into the purse. They want a bigger field. Also, with this much room, they can afford to put some other riders out there. So it's good for the sport and also good for the spectators.
The riders are all in the starting gate, lined up side by side. Our starting grid there brought to you by Arby's. And there is Ricky Carmichael. What more can be said about him? Well, we actually do have quite a bit to say about Ricky Carmichael. We'll have to see how this race goes. The pressure of equaling Jeff Stanton's 4-in-a-row record here, the pressure of winning yet again in Daytona. How will Ricky Carmichael stand up to that?
The way he stood up to every record that he's pounced on so far. You know, Ricky Carmichael just wants to race. He wants to win. Records don't mean anything. They just keep falling. So the 30-second card is up. The riders are getting ready. That's where the mechanics pat them off in the back, say, all right, you're on your own. I've done everything that I can do. Now it's up to you. So you see all the mechanics backing off and giving the riders their space.
All right, we are just seconds away from the start of the 250 main here at Daytona. There's the starting gate. When it drops, they'll be underway. Ricky Carmichael on the number 4 Honda. Right next to him, a whole herd of riders that would like to keep him from equaling Jeff Stanton's record.
Carmichael 4 bikes in. Gets a great jump.
Inside into turn number 1. Carmichael, deja vu all over again from last year. No, he doesn't get the whole shot, but he does get the lead.
He does not come around the first turn first. Larry Ward gets the whole shot right up there with Sean Hamlin and Chad Reed. But Ricky Carmichael, after that first jump, has pulled out a 5-bike length lead.
Amazing performance by Carmichael, who just seems to go on autopilot when he gets here to the Daytona Supercross track. Look at the lead that he has already over Larry Ward. Sean Hamlin is somewhat distant now in 4th position. Reed has taken over 3rd, makes a mistake on the top there, but still keeps it rolling.
Chad Reed running very, very strong. He'll be in the second shortly, but he did not have anywhere near the lap times of Ricky Carmichael in the heat race, so he needs to make sure that he does not let Ricky get away from him and maybe put a little bit of pressure. We saw this track bite some of the 125 guys, but Chad Reed is the man on the move right now.
Reed working on Larry Ward. South Carolina rider on the Honda at 2nd position. Ricky Carmichael on his Honda out in front. Reed making a move on the inside. Touched the back wheel of Ward, it looked like. He's really pressuring for that 2nd position.
But he cannot.
Whoa! And Larry Ward out of the saddle, and there goes Reed.
Very, very fortunate for Reed. He was already committed. Ward came up short, and luckily for Reed, he was just off to the side. So now he's got some room. He's got no roost in front of him. See if he has something for Carmichael.
Chad Reed heading out after the leader right now, who's at least a couple of seconds ahead of him at this point. Here they're going to come through that section that gives us a great shot at where they work these jumps. And Carmichael with a small mistake. That's going to cost him a little bit.
But Carmichael with a first lap of a 123. That's 2 seconds faster than any lap he's done. Chad Reed picked it up to a 126, but still 3 seconds off of Ricky Carmichael's first lap.
Chad Reed plants a foot around the corner, heads off into the distance there. That's Carmichael running alongside the tri-oval here at Daytona International Speedway.
Now is when you think about records. Now is when you think about making mistakes. And the only guy that's really put it to you all year long, Chad Reed, who's behind you, even though you know maybe he's not the strongest in the sand, but he is on your tail. And now it's Ricky's race to lose, so he cannot make the mistakes.
Ricky Carmichael, your leader, only 1 lap complete, working towards the end of lap number 2 right now. The race is going to be 20 laps, 30 riders, and Reed is definitely gaining some ground on Ricky Carmichael.
Ricky's trying some different lines. He's in the perfect spot right now because he can watch everywhere where Ricky's going, but he can also try a little bit of different lines back and forth and wonder where he loses and where he makes time, and then take the best of the two and go for it. Ricky just has to attack and really not care about anybody but moving forward. Just like we talked about earlier with the practice laps, that's what Ricky Carmichael does. He just is a machine, runs lap after lap after lap.
Ezra Lusk back in 8th position, the only other rider that's won this year. Carmichael has won 6 times, Chad Reed twice, and he is coming.
Chad Reed with the 121.1 and a half a second quicker than Ricky Carmichael. So both of these riders now down to a 121.1 and a 121.7. So unbelievable lap times that these guys are throwing down.
Unbelievable indeed. The track is certainly holding together and getting faster, if anything, as we go to the main event here. Carmichael's margin of victory over second place in his heat race was a staggering 35 seconds, and that was doing minute 25. So imagine if he'd been going this fast.
Whenever we get into the sandy situations, Carmichael seems to pull out a little bit, but when we get into the hard technical section, Chad Reed starts to pull it in. So it's seesawed back and forth, and both of these riders are running very, very fast.
They were both winners here last year. Carmichael in the 250 main, Chad Reed in the 125. They go head-to-head as defending Daytona Supercross winners. We'll be right back to this one in a moment.
Comedy this week on Fox.
Welcome back as Ricky Carmichael enjoying a very meager 2-second advantage over Chad Reed, who has thrown down a minute 21 second flat lap here just a few moments ago. Reed is not far behind Carmichael, who seems to have really kind of gathered himself together, and now he's run very consistent laps for the last few.
Ricky Carmichael's not really one that you can pressure into a mistake. Ricky makes him on his own if he ever does. So Chad is really running strong, but he's losing it a tenth of a second at a time. And Ricky Carmichael is the one that's pulling away, but here's the race for third place.
Third place between Larry Ward, number 10 on the Honda. Behind him it's Tim Ferry on a Yamaha, and these two guys have been going after it for quite a while. No one is able to gain a clear advantage over the other. Timmy Ferry pulls up alongside a couple of times, and then Ward runs off.
They've been going elbow to elbow, banging back and forth. Here we go. Oh, swapping the lead back and forth, and now Tim Ferry moves himself into that third spot.
And Ezra Lusk is not far behind them on the number 11 bike. Lusk, again, the only other winner of the season besides Carmichael and Reed. So it's a three-way battle for third. Let's take a look a little bit earlier as these two guys were swapping fabric.
Well, they're moving. They're running really hard. They're not really trying to block. Larry gets out a little bit. Here comes Ferry on the inside. Boom, little jam. Larry's looking back, wondering if Ferry's trying to take him out, but both of those guys are stiff racers. No blood, no foul.
And the mechanics with the terrible towels over there in the pit area, waving them around. You see them swinging those white towels every once in a while. Boy, the guys in the back of the pack are looking awful muddy here as this battle for third starts to heat up.
Larry Ward is one of those riders that has raced 3 different decades, all the different brand manufacturers. And then a couple weeks ago in Atlanta, he ended up having to run the last chance qualifier. His bike was broken. They brought it down to the last second, won that, and ended up hole-shotting the main event and leading for about 10 laps. So Larry Ward just did a story with him on Supercross.com. Is one of those guys that stays out there, loves racing, and is always right in the top 5.
Right now, Larry Ward is holding off Ezra Lusk right now. The battle for fourth as Ferry has gotten by and strolled away just a little bit. It's so far behind the leaders that it's doubtful that any of these 3 men will be able to catch either Reed or Carmichael. They're some 30 seconds back or more at this point.
Lusk right now is the man on the move. He's moving forward. He's up on the back wheel of Larry Ward. But you got to remember, it's one thing to catch up to a rider here at Daytona. To get by him's another thing. And this is where Larry was getting past last time, but he seems to have a good rhythm, very constant, and he seems to be throwing that 450 seems to be throwing a lot of dirt in Lusk's face.
Indeed, a lot of roost coming off the back wheel of the big 4-stroke Honda under Larry Ward. Ezra Lusk there in second. Off in the distance has gone Tim Ferry. Chad Reed still chasing Ricky Carmichael, but not successfully, as Carmichael has opened up something on the order of a 4 and almost 5-second advantage over Reed on the Yamaha.
But now let's look back, and those guys are 41 seconds behind the leader. So Ricky Carmichael and Chad Reed are way out in front, but these 3 guys right here, Larry Ward running strong, losing his footing a little bit, but Lusk not able to capitalize.
There is Larry Ward on the number 10 machine, running in 4th position, trying to hold off Ezra Lusk. Timmy Ferry is out in front. Lusk is right behind him as he comes up here, and lap traffic is an issue. We'll continue to watch this battle while Ricky Carmichael strolls out front. He's slowed down to a minute and 24-second laps, faster than his heat race. At the Daytona Supercross by Honda, it is Honda's Ricky Carmichael putting on a show here today as he runs along the tri-oval in the lead. He is still so aggressive. He is 11 seconds ahead of second place, a minute ahead of third, and he just keeps attacking this track and this field. 12 laps down out of 20 scheduled to run, and RC is looking pretty good.
He's just lapped into the top 5. You got to understand that this is a minute and a half lap time. He's lapped all the way up to the top 5, and it's done with passes like this. He goes out there and he's running hard every lap, even if he gets offline. He doesn't slow down, doesn't lose his momentum. But what you're going to see how rough this track is, how deep the ruts are, the hard pack. Take a look at this groove as he comes behind Keith Johnson, comes through the corner. Who says short legs aren't good for Supercross? It's all the way up to his gas tank. That's how deep the ruts are. Also, it's moves like this. Ricky Carmichael splitting 2 different riders. That put him into the top 10. He lapped Heath Voss, who was in 10th position. James Pavoni, he's lapped the second time. So Ricky Carmichael, unbelievable, the show that he's putting on right now, the dominance that he's putting together right now.
And the fans are loving every minute of it as Florida native Ricky Carmichael continues to show them who the best rider in Supercross today is right here at the Daytona International Speedway. He's in a class by himself, clearly. Looking at the battle for 5th right now. Larry Ward slipped back along with Danny Smith. We've got Ezra Lusk off the track, so that moves them up into a battle for 4th position. As Lusk tries to get going again, it's Morgan Smith.
That also put Ricky Carmichael, he's lapped up to 3rd position. Unbelievable. But Danny Smith, normally a West Coast guy, just getting his teeth wet, just sinking his teeth into the 250s, running a very, very good race today. In 6th place, he's a little bit smaller, kind of light in the tail, but he's out there putting together a great run. Larry Ward in front of him. Consistency, consistency, consistency.
Smith, the leading Suzuki in the field right now. Carmichael on his Honda out in front. Then it's Chad Reed on the Yamaha. Timmy Ferry also on a Yamaha in 3rd position. Lusk on his Kawasaki, we saw him just lose a spot there. Larry Ward on the Honda, and then Danny Smith on Suzuki, the top 6 runners right now. And Ricky Carmichael only has 2 riders on the lead lap with him.
Well, Chad Reed has fallen down, fell behind those different riders. Actually, no, he's lapping them as well. My bad. Now Chad Reed is lapped up to 4th position as well. So these 2 riders in a league by themselves, which normally you see that. You see an epic battle between Howerton and Hannah, Bailey and myself, Ward and myself, and also Jeremy McGrath and Jeff Emming. A lot of times 2 guys will step out, whether it's confidence or motorcycle, whatever it is. But these 2 riders are in a league by themselves.
Well, Chad Reed was up as close as, he was actually holding the margin at about 9 seconds or 10 seconds. It's up to 12 right now. So Reed, perhaps his spirit is kind of finally broken as he is so far ahead of 3rd place. There's no one to rate. There's no reason to be pressured from behind, and it's clear that he's not going to gain any ground on Ricky Carmichael unless RC makes a major mistake.
Ezra Lusk pushing his way back up. He fell down, fell back quite a bit. Now he's moved his way back up right behind Danny Smith, and he's working on him. Don't want to take anything away from Chad Reed. You know, Ricky Carmichael is the dominant guy out there, but this is only his 1st year in 250, so I'm not going to really want to put him down for the 2nd place behind the strongest guy. And here comes Larry Ward, and also Chad Reed lapping into the top 3.
Chad Reed is still on the move, hoping for some help up front.
Danny Smith making an aggressive move on the outside. Larry Ward let off just a little bit to let Chad Reed by. Thought he was getting lapped by somebody else. And great racing going back and forth with Danny Smith moving his way past Larry Ward.
This looks like the first lap of the race, except everybody's way too dirty.
Well, this place gets you very dirty. That's one of the things. You get up close behind somebody, but it's hard to get by him. Now, Larry Ward making another move. And Daytona is one of the only places you see passing on the outside like this.
The sun actually made a brief appearance. The track got faster for a while, a minute and 21 seconds, nearly flat. That was Chad Reed's fastest lap of the race, but he's running 2nd to Carmichael. Ricky Carmichael working through traffic on lap number 16. He will complete it in just a few moments as he heads back towards the start-finish line, does a double jump right there, keeps the pressure on. Changes another tear off in the air. He's gotten used to doing that over the years. And this battle back a little bit further behind him for 5th position is still pretty good. Lusk goes.
Danny Smith made a small mistake, looked over, and almost looked like he let Lusk by. But Danny was definitely running strong, but didn't have the line. But maybe it looks like he's going to make it back after.
Here he comes back. Danny Smith making a move back on Ezra Lusk. He's just one little short jump away. Now Lusk jets off on his Kawasaki out in front. This battle for fifth continues to rage.
It doesn't seem like a big, you wouldn't think it would be a big gap, a 125 guy versus a 250 guy, but the experience that you have when you ride a 250 all the time, Danny's still learning a lot every lap that he's out there, so my hat's off to him. He's doing a great job adapting to the 250.
Much like Chad Reed running in second position, Danny Smith making a recent conversion to the 250 class, which Ricky Carmichael did and had his own problems adapting from the 125 to the 250 machine, but once he got going, there was no stopping him.
Well, Ricky Carmichael's still very aggressive. He's putting more than a period on this. Watching him as he comes through the lap, through the traffic. He's not going to wait to get by. He's going to push him out of the way. He rubs Tyler Evans a little bit, letting him know, get out of the way. Nice riding. He's still getting blasted hard in the face, so he's a champion. He loves to win, and he loves to race.
Tyler Evans running in 17th position right now, the number 64 out of California. He's on a Suzuki 250. There's Ricky Carmichael, though. He's just 3 laps, well, just outside 3 laps from the finish of this one. 16 laps are done. He's working on lap 17 right now.
Yeah, Ricky's done a really good job with figuring out the track and the suspension. He's always liked the sand, and definitely he's always been in great physical shape. But Danny Smith, he's in 6th position. He's working his way up. He's trying to chase back Ezra Lusk, but it's not going to happen right now. It's going to take another mistake by Yogi, which sometimes that happens. This track has bit a lot of riders here today, but Danny Smith, number 29, is running a very strong race.
Speaking of 125 riders, defending 125 West champion Travis Preston running in 4th position right now behind Timmy Ferry, who's in the number 3 spot and will mount the podium. It looks like he's got a pretty clear advantage, so we're just updating you on the standings as they scroll across the top of the screen. You can also take a look at where every rider, all the way down to 30th place, a couple of them have retired from this competition. Retired because Ricky Carmichael has just kept the pressure on. Not many can stand that kind of cooking. Well inside 3 laps to go for Ricky Carmichael, and he will stand alongside Jeff Stanton as the only 2 men who have won 4 times in a row here at Daytona. He will move within 2 race wins of the all-time combined list, and Carmichael just keeps it going.
As a matter of fact, that person you saw inside with the big long Honda jacket clapping for him is Jeff Stanton. Jeff Stanton and I have worked back in the 80s. Jeff's a very great person for Honda. He's done a lot of good work for them. But watching Ricky Carmichael, he does not make many mistakes, but he does push it right on the edge. He has made a few mistakes, so let's take a look at this one.
Carmichael's race has not been perfect, but he's recovered from every mistake as he goes for his face again. Take a look.
That was my bad. Ricky Carmichael coming around here pushing very, very hard. Watch, he loses his wheel as he comes off, but he balances with his body, comes up almost on the hay bale, comes up short. That's because that man is strong. He's very confident with his bike. Even a mistake like that, he still maybe only lost a half a second.
Carmichael getting applause from just about everybody around the racetrack. They're paying homage to the man who is the dominant rider in Supercross racing here today, and perhaps in all of the motocross sport, indoors or out.
We're watching the fastest man on the dirt track right now. A lot of people have argued saying that Miguel Pastrana or Stefan Everett are faster than Ricky when it comes to outdoors, but his speed is unbelievable. Sebastien Tortelli, who I've been working with earlier this year, who got hurt, was the rider that they thought could question him on the outdoors. But Ricky's been the guy in Supercross, and also look at him here in the sand. He's lapped up to 3rd place. Unreal.
Tremendous conditioning is the key for Ricky Carmichael, and has been. He works himself very, very hard. He strives for perfection, but he's just got such tremendous raw talent and great physical conditioning. It's difficult for anyone to challenge him regardless of which side of the big pond they come from.
He's coming up. He's going to have 1 more lap to go. But Ricky Carmichael, it's his race to lose. I mean, he's almost lapped everybody in the field. So 1 lap to go, just riding, enjoying this time. And he definitely deserves it, because the way he's won it in style. He didn't wait for somebody to fall or be consistent. He races hard every lap, every turn.
Still reaching for tear-offs there, nodding to his crew. As you see, the history being made here at Daytona. We've made a lot of history at this very important racetrack. The Daytona International Speedway gave birth to the entire sport of Supercross with that first win by Pierre Karsmakers, and Ricky Carmichael looking to become the last man to put his stamp on a very long list of Daytona winners.
Look, he relaxed for 1 minute, almost goes down. This track is unbelievably treacherous. See what he does for the crowd. He's wanting to hear him. With his 400th event, he deserves to go out in the record books as the dominant man of his era.
Well, he's certainly playing to the crowd right now, because there's very little else to do besides just stay upright on his bike, as a very quiet ride there by the number 15 of Timmy Ferry, running in third position. We haven't seen a lot of him. He made a move into that number 3 spot and has just been all alone there so far.
Yeah, here we go, Carmichael. That's Jeff Stanton right there, waving at him, cheering him on. And Carmichael's really enjoying this victory. As I said earlier, Daytona was always one of the biggest races for me to race, and also for all these riders. You've got the international fans, you've got people from all over the world, and it's Bike Week. This is the celebration of motorcycles. He's from Florida. This is what racing is all about for Ricky Carmichael. Since he was a little kid riding mini bikes, this is what he dreamed of.
Well, we saw Nicky Hayden live his dream in the Daytona 200 a year ago, and now Ricky Carmichael does it again for the 4th time consecutively. Ricky Carmichael and his Honda have won here at the Daytona International Speedway. An unbelievable performance that looked like it was going to be a good race early. Then Ricky Carmichael turned it into a one-man show here in front of a huge crowd at what he considers his home track.
A lot of people congratulating him, telling him great job. This man is happy. He's going to want to go run around, do a victory lap. So we got to make sure we get him here on speed so we can talk to him about this historic event.
No question about it. He has shed the helmet now, and he's just going to celebrate. And looking pretty clean considering how many lap riders he had to come up behind. So as Ricky Carmichael prepares to celebrate, we prepare to let you hear from the man who has just won 4 straight at Daytona.
4th Daytona win. Congratulations.
It feels good. You know, I got an awesome start and rode smart. Those guys tired out a lot, and man, I kept it going. My Honda was awesome today. I tell you, the thing is unbelievable. It was super fast, and I got all the starts, and that's what you needed to do today. It was an awesome race. Awesome.
Well, congratulations, man.
Thanks a lot. It feels good. You know, definitely got to thank Honda, Dunlop, Oakley, Fox, my trainer Eldon Baker. He's got me in tip-top shape, and you know, this was a man's track out here today, and whoever's in shape usually wins. I feel awesome.
Well, awesome job, Ricky. Congratulations. Brian?
All right, Ricky Carmichael, let's take a look at the results. It is the 15th win here at the Daytona Supercross by Honda for Honda. They have now equaled the combined other manufacturers' total of wins in this race. Ricky Carmichael winning 2 for Kawasaki and now 2 for Honda goes into the record books, equaling Jeff Stanton's 4 consecutive victories. If he can win the championship, he'll also equal Stanton for titles in Supercross as well.
Well, Jeff Stanton was a great competitor back in the 90s, and now Ricky Carmichael is the guy that once we turn the corner on the century has been the man and the dominant man. One on 125s, now on 250s.
Carmichael's 2 championships equal those 2 of my broadcast partner Rick Johnson. Let's go back downstairs to Greg White with 0 Supercross championships so far anyway. Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Chad, that was a heck of a race for you. You had him early, we looked like.
Yeah, you know, I was just, my main focus was to get a good start, and, you know, I knew Ricky was going to be strong, and I just tried to go at it early on, and, you know, he filled my mouth up pretty good with some sand, and I was choking, and I was like, man, just stick it in there, and, you know, I tried my hardest. You know, we almost lapped 3rd, so, you know, nobody else has beat Ricky here, so, you know, I'm bummed out, but I guess, you know, I tried, and we'll come back next year, try harder.
Well, you take the points, you know. Congratulations. Back up to you, Brian.
All right, our congratulations also to Chad Reed for a fine performance. Carmichael with his 7th win of the season extends his lead to 25 points over Chad Reed, and David Vuillemin, who could not compete once again here in the main event after crashing in the heat race. So he'll remain in 3rd position, but a long way back. Let's go now one more time down to our colleague in the studio, and Mr. Ralph Shaheen.
Thanks, Brian, and a great race here today, and a historical one as well for Supercross record books. The 400th 250cc race, and the checkered flag goes to Ricky Carmichael, his 4th win in a row here at Daytona. A tremendous afternoon, and RC really shined through all the rain here today. Here's the lineup of what we've got coming your way tomorrow. It's going to be a busy day. Get up early, lock yourself on speed, and just stay with us. The MB&A 250 Grand Prix will kick things off around 9:30 a.m. Pro Honda Oils race will be in there. The pre-race show for the Daytona 200 by Arai at 12:30. Then the front row of Ben Bostrom, Curtis Roberts, Matt Millad, and Aaron Yates will begin the Daytona 200 by Arai, and more racing after that. For Brian Drebber, Ricky Johnson, Greg White, I'm Ralph Shaheen. Thanks for joining us here for the Daytona Supercross by Honda. Ricky Carmichael, your winner. We'll see you back here at Daytona for more Bike Week tomorrow. Where else? On Speed.